Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Debra, CEO of Rue Global Impact and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Debra Rue, and I'm the CEO of Rue Global Impact. I'm also the executive chair and co-founder of Billion Strong, and I am a mature adult. I've decided to say it like that now. I'm a mature adult with gray and purple hair, green summer dress on with yellow and blues, and I have brown glasses on today. I'm also a white woman, so I guess I could have embedded that better. But today, my business partner is on the show, and he's been on the show before. Richard Streitz. He's a former Disney Imagineer, and he's brilliant. He's brilliant. He just is brilliant. And so we're going to talk about, could we really make the metaverse accessible? Is that possible? And are smart cities really smart if they don't include all of us? And so I love his perspective, not only from a Disney Imagineer, but also from all the work he's done since he left Disney. So I personally believe Richard's one of the smartest people in the industry on these topics. And I love that he knows we all need to be included for there to be real impact. So Richard, welcome to the program again. And if you don't mind giving a short introduction and also giving a visual description.
Hello, thank you, Debra, and hello, everyone. My name is Richard Streitz, and a visual description. I am a mid-50s white male with a white and salt and peppered, I will say. It's really great. Hair and beard and mustache. I am wearing a light seafoam green short sleeve shirt because we are at 100 degrees out here in Richmond, Virginia.
Yes, it is very hot. Yes, I agree. But it's the summer, so we'll just go with that. But Richard, I know you've been on the show before a couple of times, and I remember when I met you, you were working on a huge project in Costa Rica, and you brought me in to make sure that we were thinking about the needs of people with disabilities and older people. But it was fascinating watching that project because I remember we would give you all kind of great ideas. And then you would be like, yeah, we did that 10 years ago at Disney. Or it was just fascinating, the work that you've done. And so maybe let's start by refreshing people's memory if they've listened to some of the other episodes. But tell us about the work that you've done as a design engineer, Imagineer, former Imagineer. Once you're a Disney Imagineer, always a Disney Imagineer. But tell us a little bit about your work, because I don't see many other people in the industry that have this kind of experience.
Sure. Thank you, Debra. Yeah, my background, certainly during the time that I was with Imagineering, I was very fortunate to be part of the group of individuals that from an early conceptual stage worked together with the team. I can never say that I worked alone or that I did everything all myself. It was always very much a team and collaborative effort. And so I was one individual that provided input into the process. And as a result of those processes, one of the things that I can say with great confidence is that there was always a very conscious effort to make sure that accessibility and inclusion was part of the dialogue and part of the process, the thinking process from the very, very early stages. Our audiences are very broad, and as a result, we have to make sure that everything that is designed or put out or created or manufactured, produced, is something that produces some level of value, entertainment value or otherwise, to the broadest spectrum of individuals. And person with disabilities, of course, is one of those groups that we took into consideration with things. And so that process was embedded all the way. It wasn't just in the very beginning, and then we move on through the engineering and then the production and manufacturing. It was in construction. Through each one of those phases, that was constantly being gone through and refreshed and reviewed and monitored. And we'd bring people in, outside individuals. So it wasn't just all internal dialogue. These were individuals from within the different industries that would provide input, including persons with disabilities as well, but the various different peer groups associated with that. So there was always a very active dialogue and a review process through every step of the way.
And Richard, when I've asked you so many questions, because I've known you for years, but for example, you were one, and I don't know what the right word is, but you were the Imagineer for Tower of Terror. And so I was just wondering for any of the audience that might not know what that is, but if you would just talk about what it is and why you wanted everyone to be able to participate. And I will tell everyone, I did not. I chose not to participate, but he can't solve the problem that I have, which is fear. I don't think you can. Just tell us a little bit about it, because I think
Sure.
it shows really what we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. In working in the initial design concepts for Tower, we looked at a number of different things. Obviously, the premise of the attraction is it was at the time it was the initial concept of the attraction was Twilight Zone themed, and so it's like you're experiencing one of the episodes, one of the old traditional episodes of Twilight Zone, where you enter into an old hotel and you go through it. It's haunted. You enter into an elevator, you're coaxed into an elevator, and then something goes horribly wrong, and the elevator misbehaves. It free falls, gives the impression that it free falls. And later on, initially that was the free fall. It would have a false fall, and then it would free fall the rest of the way. Later on, shortly after it opened, they went to a bouncing where it would go down, and then it would come back up, and then go down again, and back up. And they created this sort of bouncing yo-yo effect, which was very popular and loved by many of our writers on that attraction. But when we were creating that attraction, one of the things that we had to take into consideration, obviously, are the G forces that are associated with that, and what that means, and how that affects a broad number of individuals from 1 to 101.
And wheelchair users. I mean, you can go on there
right,
with a wheelchair.
individuals. Right, all individuals of
Canes.
different abilities and what have you. And so it was important that we created as viable a show experience for those individuals as much as anyone else. And so as part of that, we were very careful in making sure that the attraction is absolutely safe for all of those individuals, for all of those groups. And what we do is through sound, through sight, through visual effects, through sound effects, through tactile sensory effects, and again leveraging all three of those, as well as all of the senses, so that any individual that may not necessarily have one of those senses is still able to enjoy the attraction and get the entertainment experience out of it. And that's something that we, again, are very conscious and deliberate about through the design process, and making sure that we are able to achieve that. Tactile has a tremendous amount to do with the overall experience, and especially in that attraction with the sense of free falling. Of course, one never really free falls. In fact, one of the things
It feels like
that's
you
just
do, Richard. So that's why I'm not going on it.
one of the interesting factoids as a tangent is that actual gravity in a free fall was not fast enough. So we actually end up having to pull the vehicle, the ride vehicle, in the elevator shaft down to give the impression that you're free falling, because
Wow.
gravity is just wasn't fast enough, and wasn't thrilling enough experience given the size of the large cargo elevator that you're riding in. But anyway, so in that attraction, again, through the design process, we were very careful and conscious, and even through the queue line. So as you approach the building, you're standing in line. Obviously, you're in for an attraction like that, it would be labeled in the traditional ticket system as an e-ticket, and so we knew that there were going to be long lines for that attraction. So we make sure that the pre-show or the queue line areas certainly had multi-sensory sorts of experiences for it, to again make sure that there was earned entertainment value, and again just very conscious of that through that whole design process.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. I've heard you get into conversations with engineers. I remember you getting to a deep conversation with an engineer in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I just was sitting back going, wow, wow. I don't even know these things exist in the world. But I am fascinated with why the Disneys of the world, because it's not just Disney, but Disney certainly is one of the first. Why did they care so much about designing things with all of our senses? I've heard you talk about, which I just don't think about it. I go in and I experience a ride, and I don't always think about how it came together, but the temperature in the room, is there humidity, what is the smell? And there's just so many different things that were considered, which again makes it really powerful for humans. Because as you said, if I don't see as well, or maybe I can't see at all, I still have this really powerful experience. But also as we age and we start losing different senses and abilities, yeah, I'm a little confused how y'all were doing that before we started yelling and complaining about accessibility and disability inclusion. Disney had already been doing it. Why?
I, yeah, I think one of the reasons why it goes back to something that we all are, something that's inherent to all of us that we may have necessarily forgotten over the millennial, and that is storytelling. The idea of storytelling and the deep found tradition of that. Obviously, and you go back a couple thousand years, it was all verbal. And the idea of verbal storytelling was a way of transforming and passing information, and also transcending one to to expand one's imagination, right? To dispel them from their current reality into some other alternate reality. And a term that we will revisit later on in the program, I'm sure. But that the idea of storytelling is really the first alternate reality. And the idea of that is important to expanding one's mind, both for children to hear elders talk about stories of the past or experience, but also in passing information from current generations one to another in information or experiences. And the idea of wrapping that into stories is something that is critically important for us as a species, because that's how we remember things. That's how we're hardwired. That's how we're programmed going way, way, way back to remember things. Fire hot, don't touch, you'll get burned. And a legend that's wrapped around as to how and why you don't touch that, and so forth. And we fast forward to today, in today's period of time, I think in many respects we're still hardwired for that, but at a subconscious level. At a conscious level, we don't. We're so distracted by everything around us that we've forgotten the ability to be able to truly storytell, and the importance of that in what that means to accessibility and inclusion, and the idea of working in environments and creating environments through story that allow for it to be an engaging experience to a large, broad audience and in a designed environment. I think that is just very, very important, and one of the reasons why the idea of story is so profoundly important as a starting point, using that as a basis to be able to create these environments that are truly engaging. And that's one of the reasons why they become engaging, is because we wrap story around an allegory and what have you into what we're designing. It provides at a deep subconscious the value and the idea that they belong there, that it dispels the individual into a different alternate reality, however brief it is, for the moment that they're writing in the attraction or experience an environment that they're in, virtual or real, into feeling like everything is okay, like they belong there, like they're experiencing it, everyone else is experiencing it. And that is ultimately the goal, because that is what gives us the level of comfort that we all look to achieve.
Right. And Richard, can I make some assumptions? Because I think I can, that other groups like Disney, I know we've worked with ThinkWell, which has recently been bought, but do you find that other designers are really thinking like y'all did? And because we don't always see it as the community. So I just don't know is there a gap there?
I think that there's less of a gap now than there has been in the past. And I say that only because there was a very large layoff that happened many years ago at Disney Imagineering. And many of those individuals that had that sort of background, had that experience, had that training, got spread out across the industry in many different directions, some creating their own firms, some joining other larger firms. And so as a result, it in many ways, it leveled the playing field and I'm speaking now just purely from that industry, which was good for the public at the end of the day, because I think the level of design and experience that the environments that are created by these individuals are of just a higher caliber than they were. Now fast forward to today, I think that as a result of the pandemic, as we're emerging from the deep throes of the pandemic of the past 2.5 years, I think that there is a heightened awareness and sensitivity to accessibility and inclusion, because in many ways, at some point or another during the past couple of years, everyone was feeling a little disabled, a little bit hindered from their normal routine, and that is experiencing a disability, is going through that process. And so as a result of that, I think there is a little more empathy that there has in the past, and a deeper understanding to the issues that really surround creating inaccessible environments. And this ties into the virtual world, into the AR VR experiences that have now just absolutely blossomed. And I think one of the reasons why those industries have over the past couple of years is precisely because of the pandemic. I think in many ways, the pandemic really helped launch and push that, because it took all of us that ended up being isolated and forced us, because we are a herd animal, we are a tribe animal. We have to be around people, individuals, for the most part. And so these immersive environments, these virtual environments, force us to have to learn, experience, and push the envelope from a technology standpoint, and as a result, an accessibility standpoint, to allow us to be able to do that in our isolated states, in our homes and what have you, so that we still felt that we were part of a larger group, a larger team in these immersive, rich environments. And that is a very important, that was an important push, an important step into getting us into these environments, and a great step to the industry to push for these environments. Now, as we're doing that, we have to make sure that they are accessible. And that is something that some designers have crossed over from the physical environments and moved into the virtual worlds, but many have not yet still. And so as a result, there may be a little bit of a trailing of individuals with the experience and deeper understanding of accessibility in these rich environments. And I think that's where individuals like myself and other individuals who have come from those industries that are now engaged in the metaverses have really an obligation or a duty to make sure that we keep raising that banner, that we make sure that the environments that we're creating aren't leaving anyone behind, because that would truly be a tragedy. And there are organizations that are trying very hard to make sure it doesn't happen. They're being very inclusive with their processes. And so that is, I think, where we are heading, and where there's some positivity with what the future holds in regard to these metaverse worlds.
And I'll also just say, not that this is a Disney commercial, neither one of us work for Disney, but I believe that's one reason why Disney is such a beloved brand, because you can go there with your whole family, all the generations of your family. If you have somebody with a disability in your family, I love that the efforts were made by leaders like you to make sure we all could participate in the magic. And I believe that Disney is continuing to show leadership on that. But you brought up the metaverse. And I think a lot of these also, even before I go to the metaverse, a lot of these gigantic projects that, like you did, Animal Kingdom, Euro Disney, Tokyo Seas Disney. I'm forgetting one of the big parks, but
those are the big ones.
Those are some good ones. Yeah. But it's just fascinating, everything that has to be done to put this together. I remember you talked about when y'all were in France and the roads and this changed. And I make Richard tell me stories all the time. All right, tell me a story, Richard. And he's a very good storyteller, back to storytelling. But I often see lots of advertising about smart cities, and now I'm seeing tons of metaverses. Oh yeah, we're building a metaverse. I'm just seeing it everywhere. But I don't hear inclusive, accessible with most of these metaverses. Now, I know you are actually working on a metaverse project where accessibility is being deliberately embedded. So we know that the metaverse that we're working on will be for everyone. And we challenge others working on metaverses to make sure it works for all humans. But how do you think all of this is going to come together? Once again, a city is not smart, Richard, if it's not inclusive for its citizens that are over a certain age or have disabilities or just have problems in their lives, which we do. And also, how can that tie into what we're trying to do now with the metaverse? And should we, obviously, you know how I think on this particular question, but should we keep making the same mistakes and keep building technology and cities and buildings that don't work for a large part of human beings?
Yeah, it's very interesting. One of the things I think that is a key with dealing with metaverses and digital twins and smart cities is that cities aren't smart. People are what makes cities smart. And the human-centric design of that is really what needs to be front and center in dealing with the creation of metaverses, digital twins, and smart cities. I think we can't get hung up on the technology. Technology is amazing, and we are just expanding on the advancements in technologies in all of these different areas at great speed. But one of the things I think that are really key as we adopt these technologies into the different environments that we're putting them into, that we're not forcing them into it, that we're doing it in a way that has a deliberate purpose to enhance the human-centric experience as to giving it purpose to be part of that environment. I think that we need to make sure that we're creating the proper stories first around the human experience, and then making sure the technology is there to support that experience and to support that story. So in a very high level, I think that those are important concepts and something that I keep very much front and center with the design challenges and the environments that I'm posed to work with. And with that, the amazing group that we are working with in the metaverse is the Studium Group, based out of the UK. And they have a tremendous vision with working with not only just smart cities, but also business, trade, finance, and a large spectrum. Two giant platforms, the Open Business Council and Cities ABC, are two amazing platforms, and also Fashion ABC are three platforms that are being created that will be engaging these metaverses in a way that it takes business, trade, marketplaces, fintech in places that we haven't been yet. And I think that it's really important that as a result, it puts the projects that we're working on really in the forefront and leading and driving the industry. And in that position, there's a tremendous responsibility we have to make sure that what we're doing as we're leading the field, to make sure that we are creating truly accessible and inclusive environments as part of that formula to success, because it can't be successful if only part of the population is involved. We know that we know per studies from a number of different sources that anywhere from 1.5 to 1.7, depending on the studies that you read, 1.5 to 1.7 billion people on the planet have a disability of one way or one sort or another. And then when you add on the family members or friends that are also associated with the group, is immensely large. And so it's important to make sure that we are as inclusive. Because, and Debra, I think this is one of your quotes, that the persons with disability is a group that we all come in and out of. We all at one point in our life.
Right. It's just a reality.
Yeah. We, whether temporarily that we are in and out of it through a broken limb or something like that, or we age into it. We lose our vision, doesn't get as sharp, our hearing doesn't get as sharp. We don't move quite as quickly as we used to. These are all things that are just matter of fact and matters of life. And as a result, the environments that we're building today, that we're designing and building for today, are really the environments that we will need to still immerse ourselves in the future. And I think it's really important that we keep a very constant eye in making sure that we put the time and put the effort into these environments being accessible.
I agree. And Richard, I know that we were talking earlier today about green cities. There's actually a green city coming up in our location here in Virginia. And we can call them smart cities, or we can call them green cities, we can call them innovate. I don't care what we call them, as long as we include all people, all segments of the population, culturally, and all the things are considered. But I often don't see it considered until an afterthought. So I was just wondering, what happens when you forget about including everybody?
I think one of the big challenges that these new environments, what happens if with any business, when a business, a city, or a venture, when it's not constantly updated and being refreshed, it falls stagnant. And as we know, anything that stays stagnant fouls and becomes muddied and becomes loses its value, loses its shine. Stagnation is just not good. It's not good in nature, and it's not good for anything. And so as a result, if you take any property, a business, and never reinvest in it to reinvent it and keep it refreshed, it will become obsolete. And there's many businesses that are roadkill on the side of the road of history that have fallen victim to that. And we're not being able to be nimble enough to keep up with the adjusts and the change. And so cities are really no different. Cities that don't have innovation, what ultimately happens is that people stop visiting it from a tourism standpoint, or the citizen starts leaving it because there's no innovation to keep them there. And so as a result, they move to another city that may be a little more innovative. And stagnation is just never the answer. It's important and critical that we are always reinvesting into ourselves. And whether that's a large city, small town, whether that's a business, a large business or a small business, it's the process is the same, because staying the course or staying the path without any innovation is ultimately a path to a challenge or a problem down the road.
And sadly, I see a lot of these new ones coming up that are still not considering inclusivity and accessible design. Sadly, I'm seeing programs pop up all over the place: housing, smart cities, smart communities, and they didn't even begin to try to include it.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And I think this is the subtle seduction of technology. I think what happens is individuals who are really excited about a particular technology, or maybe have come up with that technology, are very enthusiastic, as well they should be, and proud of their innovation, and they move forward at full speed only on that technology, only on looking at the advancements of the technology, and not looking at the actual application as it relates to, again, that human-centric design, that human experience, as to how and why this technology is going to affect, what's its larger impact to humanity, to the citizenry of the city. How is this technology going to improve or affect their lives? Because it's in the understanding of that and making sure that there is that connection, which ultimately will generate the greater success. You got to have community. If you don't have community, you don't have anything. And one of the key things for any business is making sure that you have established a very strong community base behind you that allows you to be able to continually innovate and advance.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, I'm going to ask you one more question. Now, I'm actually going to ask you at the end to tell everybody how to get hold of you. But I know that you work a lot with smart communities, smart projects, and of course, we're working with the metaverse. And I want to give a shout out to the gaming industry that figured out how to make some of the games accessible. So we have knowledge in this area that can be applied, and we're doing that. But another thing that I think people keep forgetting is that when you're building a smart community or revamping or whatever, it is not just about the built environment. You have to think of creative ways to bring the technology in so it can allow people to age in place and be independent. And I know this is something you really focus on, but often I hear people not talking about it. Can we ever say smart cities and think we're only talking about built environment?
No, I think we do have to include, as part of that, the idea of digital twins, the idea of metaverses, because especially now as we're advancing, the two are really going to start overlapping each other and really creating that alternate reality, gray crossover space. And we're not quite in an immersive virtual reality, but we're not out of that in the real world, and AR is that perfect crossover. And so I think as we advance, that becomes the on-ramp into this technology and into blockchain, into NFTs, and the real utility use of NFT, as opposed to just the internal industry fan hysteria that exists around NFT artworks and so forth. That's just for now, but there's actually true real utility behind the use of NFTs. There's real value there from a certification standpoint and real world use of NFTs that I think most people aren't aware of, but that's going to be coming. And I think it's very important for cities that are moving toward smart city environments and understanding the importance of digital twins, where NFTs play a very important part of navigating that blockchain for the everyday citizens, and how the accessibility and inclusion aspect of that is really key. I think the built environments and the immersive metaverse, they really will become synonymous, because in order, especially in this day and age, as the city is moving and advancing to a smart city environment, it has to include a metaverse at this point. That can't be separated. Otherwise, it won't be truly as immersive or as inclusive as it could be. It goes without saying that as an immersive environment, if you had a true digital twin of a city as an immersive experience, a person who may have mobility challenges would not necessarily be able to experience all the city has to offer without that, and the convenience of that. and not only just for persons with disabilities, but for all people, the ability
Right, all of us.
to be able to experience, instead of, if you're in Los Angeles, for example, and there's a concert in San Francisco, but you don't want to drive the 7 hours to go up there and drive back or take the flight, you could join that concert, experience that concert virtually from the comfort of your
Yeah,
home.
which is
And the ability to be able to do that and still feel like you're participating in that large group experiences, which is one of the reasons why, again, we're a tried herb animal. We can't help but want to be as part, experience that as a group, as a large crowd, and so you still get that experience, and which is so critical, important for us, and that's why I think the pandemic was really great in launching us into this metaverse of experiences, is because of that. It helped us keep out of isolation in many ways. So anyway,
I agree.
to address your question, so yeah, absolutely. I think smart cities cannot really be considered smart if they're not truly including metaverse or a digital twin type experience to their environments. This is just the way that any progressive city has to really be thinking in order to be preparing for itself for the future.
And you can call them green cities, and we want them to be green, but it also has to be inclusive and accessible for humans. Please take care of our planet. Please, let's all do a better job, because it's really scary right now. But Richard, I know I've kept you longer than I said, but will you let the audience know how to get hold of you? But also maybe you could give, I don't know if you can share the URLs that you mentioned, but we can also put them with the content later.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I think the links will be just down below. Certainly, I can be reached. My name is Richard Streitz, and it's spelled RICHARD, last name's STREITZ, at my email. That's my name. My email is richard@ruglobal.com. And also, in working with the Studium group, you can reach me at my email there, which is Richard, my first and last name separated by a dot, at studium.com, which is
ZTUBEIUM. Now, don't ask me to spell anything else. That's my spelling for the day.
And dot com. And again, we'll have the links down below. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook, and link just searching my name.
Yeah. And you can always come to me, and I'll send you to him. Richard, thank you for being on the show today. Special thanks to my producer, Kevin, in the background, and for the team for all they do to make sure this is fully accessible, transcribed, and captioned. We appreciate you. Richard, thanks for being on today.
Thank you very much. It's always a
Bye,
pleasure.
everyone.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.